Hello everyone, welcome back to Museum Diaries. It is March 13th, Wednesday, 2019. I'm here with Veronica, and we're here to discuss basically updates for our subscribers, what's going on with Museum Americana, and just kind of check in and talk about even life a little bit, artist life.
So, talking about time, what is time? Well, for me, I see time in art movements, like in prison corrections, the same thing. I was taught early on by Janice Loken, my psychiatrist at Washington Correctional Center for Women, that the criminal justice system works on a pendulum, and our society, Western civilization, tends to go in a pendulum that is 15 to 20 years approximately. So we become really punitive, and then we become more liberal, and then the pendulum swings back in response, of course, to human nature, because people aren't perfect. And when you put up that as a guideline, if we don't make perfection, then we're doomed. Well, then we get doomed by the pendulum moving to the far conservative left.
So the time for Museum Americana is now. The time is now. We have so much art that's been collected over the years.
For decades and decades, literally.
Veronica and I met through, we're fortunate enough to meet through family.
Our family lived
father
together.
Had a very close relationship with my brother, my oldest brother.
And they lived together for years, and then we wound up living together in the museum.
And he willed the museum to us, so
here we are.
Here we are, and we've collected so much years worth of art.
From different artists, not just ourselves, but from Armando Campero, our benefactor, my father, Mexican muralist, and also the Wallace collection and other collections that we've just picked up here and there, and Jack's collection. So we've got a lot of art. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of pieces.
And also I want to mention her cousin who studied with, understudied
with Armando Campero, my father.
Armando Campero, her late father. He just recently passed away. His name is Carlos
Ordina,
and he's on Facebook.
Oh my God!
His artwork is on Facebook, brilliant. And we were actually, Museum Americana was in contact with him prior to his passing. We were collaborating on exhibiting some of his art pieces and bringing them into our gallery online, but unfortunately that just kind of fell through.
He wound up passing through cancer.
It was his time to go, so we're all going to get there at some point or another.
So moving on about time. And
timing is everything.
Timing is everything, and we're talking about politics, but also art. Right now we're going through an enculturation, the Trump enculturation, ultra-conservatism, and Jax has specific points that she'd like to bring up.
Well, one of the things that concerns me as a recent, probably after his, within the last couple of years, I've become a Trump supporter. And what moved me to support his campaign so much, especially from the get-go to now, was just his stand against human trafficking. That was profound to me, because there are children that are trafficked. There are adults that are trafficked. There are single mothers that are trafficked. These issues affect families all across the world,
and
not
they're
just here in America.
They're real, but what we found is that the Homeland Security does not agree with the Trump advocacy in the White House, which states that it's the brown element, the people, the immigrants that are coming over illegally or legally even, it seems, that they bring crime with them and that they are doing the human trafficking, which the Homeland Security reports state otherwise. And you can go to Washington, D.C., look up Homeland Security. There are different things that we can access as the public. You can go to Wikipedia.
This is a crime that involves all sectors of society. You got your working class, you've got your, you got your poor class, you've got your upper class, you've got your wealthy people. This involves everyone in the pie. So
the upper class tend to be more the clients that buy rather than the ones that are trafficked, for obvious reasons. I hope everyone is astute.
It's organized crime is what it is, and it's huge.
Very
and
much
Trump
so.
knew how huge the market was.
However, he kind of changed the statistics, if you've been keeping up with the news, and according to Homeland Security, the majority of these human traffickings are not done by these immigrants that are trying to get legal access into our country, or even illegal. Actually, that is a much lower level of criminality versus the local Americans. That Americans by far are the ones that do the human trafficking, or you've got your organized cartels. We're not talking about the regular guy that, is living on beans and rice if he's lucky and trying to support a family of 4 and moves from a politically hostile environment to try to come to a new country and start over. So that's my complaint.
But sticking to the issue, and this is the issue, Trump's 2020 campaign, and this is powerful enough to swing my vote, is calling for the elimination of the IMLS, which is, and I'm quoting, this is an article that I read on bookriot.com, and the article is Trump's 2020 budget proposal threatens to defund libraries. This is by Susie Dumond. And
quote unquote.
This is her quote. For the 3rd straight year, the Trump budget proposes permanent elimination of the IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Services. Now, this is huge, okay? This is the defunding of the IMLS, which would end all federal funding of public libraries.
And museums. So can you imagine everything closes and then you're putting the budgetary burden on the state or the city or the county or the individuals to buck up and, contribute to the betterment of society. We're not dependent on the government at this point, thank God. We're independent. However, most museums are. They have federal funding that is imperative to their survival. And it takes a lot to run a museum. And we'll get into that a little bit more because we're just a fledgling company that is just finishing our inventory. We're still not finished after a year and a half.
We're in the fledgling stage, and with all the work that we've been doing, we've finally gotten to a point where we've reached the count of our inventory, and now we're looking at exhibition of all of this art. So that's where we're at. And today we actually reached out to a couple organizations, and these are organizations that would be interested in us donating art for some of their events.
Yes.
And these are organizations that are supportive of prison reform, and they're also supportive of
women's rights, free choice, and a variety of other issues. And you should go to their site, and it is called Women for Prison.
Well, womenforprison.org is one that we were looking at, but we saw that we had a hard time getting in contact with them through their website.
Right.
So the next organization we ended up in contact with is the Women's Prison Association.
And the
Women's Prison Association have been doing a lot of work, and they're really impacting communities across America. And I strongly encourage you to look into their website because they're based out of New York City. However, they would be willing to work with Museum Americana once they look over. Okay, there's real quick 2 organizations we reached out to today: the ACLU and the Women's Prison Association.
And we've got the
coordinators and directors between the both. So,
Anti-Defamation League. Also, let me see. We got the ACLU, NAACP, Anti-Defamation League. We want Amnesty International, and the prison organizations that are changing the face of prisons, or that's our ultimate goal, which if you've seen Eating the Ashes, you know about how impassioned I am about that part of my life. And as you learn about Jackie, it could have been so easily that her lover had wound up, inside basically, and then she would have been the partner that had to go visit, because that woman certainly could have gotten.
Yeah, if you're watching the Growing Pains episodes that I have,
addiction.
That's a playlist. Growing Pains talks about my dealing with drug addiction and dating people within those addictions. It's just very challenging, and like I said before in my previous episode, not something I recommend. However, getting back on track.
And those are people that fill the prisons, by the way.
Right.
Addicts. Primarily.
So, it's a huge picture when you look at it, because you're looking at how there's there's, in order for there to create supply, you need a demand. So we're looking at a demand for drugs, and there's suppliers for these drugs. I understand that Trump wants to build a wall to secure our borders, but you got to look at who's consuming all this stuff,
and you
who's
go back
distributing all this stuff.
There's like approximately 6 million Americans right now that are locked up in some type of the prison system, whether it be community probation, court systems, jails, prisons. 6 million is a profound amount of number.
And taking away...
And you're talking about the addicts, then you're talking about taking away the libraries and the museums.
If you take away access to knowledge to all these individuals, you're really talking about dividing the classes. I mean, you're really talking about haves and have-nots. How bad does it have to get? I have the right to access a library and gain knowledge, but you, as a felon, don't. How are you to rehabilitate these people?
Well, it's basically
and
impossible.
I'm saying this because I have shared deep conversations with Veronica, who's gone through the prison system in the state of Washington for 23 years. How are you really to rehabilitate these people?
Or anyone without knowledge.
If you're not including them with the knowledge that's available to society.
Now, you take away the museums, you're taking away creativity, you're taking away open ideas, because visual art transcends language. You can communicate an image of a child crying, and everyone knows what that means. Heartache, none of us want to see that. So by Trump saying that he's going to stop the federal funding, it's not just going to impact, the kids that want to hang out at the library after school. We're talking, there are so many important programs that go on in our libraries, community outreaches, there's so much help and knowledge.
I've even seen yoga classes.
Everything. They're wonderful.
They are.
And when I was doing time, that's what kept me alive, were my reference librarian, the library system. And I contributed to that library system, being a published author, which was wonderful. So if we don't have that ability to network and to see, just to be exposed to museums and art by other artists, then you're stopping the human brain from evolving. You're stopping the human spirit from having hope. I can tell you firsthand that without visual imagery and without literary ideas, you're going to kill the human spirit. And what is left? Nothing but addiction.
What's interesting is that the discovery of every civilization that we've looked at in the past,
human beings, humancide.
They have left behind traces of their civilization through art. And it's through their art, whether it's through pottery or calendar keeping
or hand marks on a cave wall in France and buffaloes.
But it's through art that we've been able to learn and decipher some of the most mysterious parts of history.
Think about the pyramids. Think about Taj Mahal. Think about any of these iconic images that help us aspire, that help us, they inspire us. And they edify us. Without our consciousness being awoken that way, you're really stopping the human brain. The majority of people, if imagine no museums, no libraries, except for a few people.
I can't imagine a world without museums
that decide,
and
I'm going to open up my $1 billion library because I'm a trillionaire. I'm talking about the average person. We no longer have access to the library programs that they offer. There's no place for the people that are homeless to go in and get warm and to read something for their mind. So we're talking about vast populations. They have DVDs in there. They have tapes. It's a way for the free man to communicate with other free men and people that aren't free.
If you've watched our recent Museum Diaries, one of our recent Museum Diaries episodes, you'll see how we took a trip to Los Angeles Central Library.
Yes, and it was one of those trips that meant a lot to us, and it should mean a lot to you.
And after that, I took a trip to my local library.
Yes. And it's just been one of those things that all my life, as a child, I grew up, my mother used to take us to libraries and museums. That's where we used to hang out. Literally, that was where we played and read and learned since I was the age of about 5 or 6. Both of my parents were very much into art and into education and knowledge.
So this is a very serious issue, and this is something we wanted to discuss on Museum Diaries as an update, along with getting in touch with a couple organizations to start to because it is time to exhibit our art. We have so much to share with the world. So
when the time is right, and that's what we're talking about with all of the Me Too situation that's been going on politically.
The Me Too movement, the hashtag Me Too movement.
Yes, all of the investigations that we are now watching happen with the Trump administration and his circle. I mean, it's so atrocious to me to see the level of infiltration that's happened within our government, within our media, within our culture, where it's become okay to have administrations like Nixon,
and you know what,
pro-war.
You know what?
I could go on and on. Reagan, Trump. Yes. What?
I have not heard. I have yet to hear the amount of scandal that exists within our government, within other governments.
Not to this extent. I mean, we've had some bad things.
I know that this isn't what democracy brews, but what's really going on with our democracy lately? I mean, check things out. Read your newspaper. Read your headlines. Just
listen to people that are thinking about these issues, that's their life study. And it's enlightening. It's really enlightening.
I mean, can you imagine waking up to a day where your children can no longer go to a library?
Or how about this? How about the schools are so dangerous you're afraid to let them out of the house? And that happens right now. Or how about this? Worrying that if your child doesn't go to school, you're going to be homeless and your child is going to be homeless because of government funding cuts. The list goes on and on. We see the homeless everywhere in Los Angeles, and it is heartbreaking. It's more than horrendous and atrocious. It's heart-wrenching. This is America. This is America. And make America great again? We're always great. We will always be great. But damn it, it's time that we all do our protest in whatever field you're in. For us, it's art, it's literature.
Support your local organizations.
Support them, but also get your voice out there, because I know a lot of you watching this are gonna say to yourself, that's exactly how I feel. I want to do something about that. What do you do? Well, that's why we have internet. If you don't know how to use that, then go to the local library and ask the reference librarian, who do I contact about this particular issue? The prices of water in my community, or the...
And that is a resource, and that is a very powerful resource to take away from the people, if you ask me. That's my opinion.
I couldn't imagine existing without libraries.
Knowledge is what makes people strive to be so much more, to achieve their dreams. And if you take that away from them, what are they left with? We're not a caveman society. We have
expression of our own
artificial intelligence nowadays, and you're going to take away libraries? I'm not understanding the picture here.
You know, to me, it's a genocide of class. And what we were discussing earlier is, how is this for a scenario? By limiting all of our generation that are still alive for the next 40 years, and the next generation after us. Imagine federal funding cut off for museums and libraries. So they don't...
And millennials.
Yeah, we're not getting access to those things. For people that can't afford computers and can't afford the internet, they go to the library. That's how they do their research, and it's very, very integral and important to their survival. So imagine that doesn't exist anymore. So now you've got people that are going to fight amongst each other because basically we're not evolving very much. Information is going to be misinformation way beyond the way we see it now. So you're going to have little clans and little cliques, and they're going to divide, and they're going to get aggressive because of the economics, because of lack of food, because of lack of medical care, lack of housing, all of the issues that we're seeing right now rising and rising. How about when air is a commodity, which it's almost right now? Water is a commodity. Imagine that. People are going to kill each other. So the powers that be, which we know are very, very proportionally minute, and it's gotten worse than ever in human history. A few people have all the money. What's going to happen? So human beings, they do these wars, the people with the power, and we kill each other off. And a few of us live, and we become almost like drone. And then we have what? Cyborgs. So the cyborgs, people with a lot of money can get a new arm, they can get a new heart, they can get a new leg, and they keep going.
One of the things that I mentioned when I read the article was this just sounds to me like the elimination of the poor class you're cutting all this funding
But we're all
increase
the poor class
military
now.
to increase military
To kill
funding.
ourselves off, to kill
So
each
what
other
are you
off.
doing? Are you cutting off knowledge from the poor class so you can put them into a draft? I mean, those are the things that I saw is a vision just from reading the articles and understanding what's happening in our country with federal funding to the Institute of Museum and libraries.
But I see it as more than just a class cut. I see it as, right now we call poor, middle class, upper class, and then the wealthy. I disagree. I think it's totally the upper class and the rest of us. And the rest of us are welfare recipients or homeless, or we have a job that barely pays our bills. Both partners have to work. Even our children have to work for them to go to college or whatever. All of these things were situations that 50 years ago they didn't have to contend with. This is not the same world. This is not the same society. And it's causing more aggression amongst ourselves. People of color, we see that the statistics go so high about the gangland killings, about just killing each other off. You know, the poorest of the poor, the immigrants, the ones that have been disenfranchised historically. That's what I'm seeing. And so we're going to be seeing all these people wipe each other out or send them to another country to wipe out the people that are poor class like us. I don't consider anyone, like I say, poor class to me is almost everybody except for the elite. And the elite are very minuscule. Now, it seems like a millionaire has all of their dreams met, and that's, you know, they're on an easy path. That's not necessarily so. There's a treadmill within their lives just to keep up with their mortgages and their payments. So although it seems like they have a better life, I wouldn't say that it's better. It's better in that they have food, they have shelter today, electricity, but you saw what happened with the mortgage crises. You saw the stock market crashes, and it's been happening over and over. So what we're doing is we're seeing this greater separation. And whether people like to know it or not, I believe that Marx and Hegel were talking about this entire thing, that there is an implosion that's going to happen within capitalism. It's inherently flawed.
You know what? I didn't
So
see
Mao
it. I didn't
says put
see
a
it.
cap on capitalism.
I
That's
didn't
the only
see-
way I can see our way out of
And
it.
then we're branding that, Mao says, and eventually we would hope
That's Museum Americana.
to get to the point where the artists are saying, you know what, we have these issues. What does Ma says? What does Museum Americana say?
Because Ma and artists ruled the world, in truth. If we were to harness our intellect and not have it exploited by these other people, we're going to have power. And I think that we as intellectuals, those of us that are inventors, that are artists, we need to protect art from being exploited by the people that will exploit it and then deny access to the people that are the majority. So I ask you to take a stand within your own soul, within your own consciousness. Take a stand. We have. And our stand is to not feed into the avarice and the greed. Don't get us wrong, we want to have a comfortable living, but we don't want to see our neighbor starving. And so it's finding that balance, and we need to address that issue. We as a society, we as a people, we as a neighbor, we as a friend, we as a family member, we need to openly discuss these issues. It doesn't matter if we have an Archie Bunker in our family. Just having the debate, opening it up, letting children or our peers or older or younger people see us having a dialogue like this is going to make an impact. We've got to do it in our homes, in our communities now. We've got to have these open It used to be that you never talk about politics or religion. That was like a rule of polite society. Well, guess what, society? We can't afford to be polite anymore. This is our basic survival. And I'm talking about for the next 50 years out. I'm looking at that kind of distancing, and I hope you are too. We need to do something. We need to get our voices heard. If you disagree with the politics that you're seeing with Donald Trump and his changes that are going on, the laws that are going on, the tax changes, if you feel that it's not correct, then by all means, sit down and write a letter. Make a phone call. Call your local representative. Call Senate. Call whoever you can.
Because the America that you once knew, you can all of a sudden wake up one day and it will be a completely different America than what you ever knew.
Germany, Do you think that happened overnight? No, it happened in increments. And that's what we're seeing in America right now. We've seen the incremental changes in the lessening of our rights as citizens to exclude us and to give more to those that have the power, which is the money.
So this next election, 2020, when you look at the next representative that you want to see as your president, I would look at what you truly, wholeheartedly value in society, in America, in our country today. And you look at those representatives and you see who of all those representatives really reflects those values and those morals. And go by that.
And don't limit yourself if all you watch is CBS News.
Do not go by the title of a
CNN,
Democrat.
Go to the Guardian. Go to the Republic. Go to
the Greenpeace Party.
Yes,
look
at different
research.
voices.
Look at their history. Where did they study? What were their takes on certain issues? Find all that out. Research it.
Read. It's so fascinating. I guarantee you, once you start reading history, it's
wonderful.
wonderful.
Where's their campaign funding coming from?
Right.
What lobbyists are behind them?
What
have they accomplished? How have they voted on certain issues that you hold very dear to your heart?
What are their economics? How are they living? And what is their history?
And what is their background?
Keep an open mind.
Were they born wealthy? Are they going to keep you in mind? The working class? The middle class?
The poor
class? Look at all these factors. Seriously.
Let's all keep an open mind. I do. I really do. And I want everyone to do that. I believe that the best society is going to be one that fosters openness.
Well, we always talk about, me and my sister here, we always talk about a mutual admiration society.
And that's what we live by. And that's been pretty much a foundation of the Wallace tribe. Professor Wallace, that was his phrase, we're a mutual admiration society. So that's what we believe in. That's what Campero, that's what our family does. So we want you to be part of that. You are our family.
Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Museum Diaries. We look forward to catching you up to date on the next one. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. Leave comments down below. If you have art that you're interested in us looking into, hit us up.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and we wish you the best. Peace out.
Thank you.
And global peace.
We'll talk to you soon.